Everyone. I'm a Chief Growth Officer across Australia and New Zealand. And basically, what that boils down to is I get to support our clients in achieving growth. And I feel very privileged to be in that position for the simple reason that there's never been a better time to be in marketing. And marketing's actually never been better at delivering growth. And what I want to take the 20 minutes I've got to talk to you about today is why that's the case, and then how we can get a bit better at telling that story. But I want to start with a very bold statement, which is that marketing is now the most important growth function in any company. And it's not something you hear very often. It's not something we feel in agency or we necessarily talk about as marketers, but it's true. It's backed by facts. And there's a clear case for it. And there's a clear case for why marketing should play a more senior role. And those are the four key things I want to share with you today as my promise. And so, look, let me start quite broad and bring it down. But here's the facts that sit behind this. When we look at marketing today, it matters more than ever. In fact, it now contributes an average of 50% to the total enterprise value of any company. Enterprise value is just a roundabout way of saying the total value. If you take the stock market as well as the balance sheet into account, 50% of how much a company is worth comes down to marketing. And it makes sense, right, when you think about it, because any company today, whether it's tinned cans and craft or a digital service and Uber, relies heavily on their brand. The saliency of that brand and the choice of that brand to sell their product. And that can be measured and it matters. So if we start really broadly, marketing contributes more than any other business function, more than product, more than innovation, more than technology, more than experience, more than retail, more than call centers or anything else that the board will discuss. Marketing also generates significant business returns. Again, something we don't think about. There's an old adage in the industry which has haunted us for years. I know 50% of my budget works, I don't know which. It's not true. Marketing always works and it always returns. And in fact, there's proof that over time, over 3 years, marketing spend and the average campaign, doesn't matter how good we think it is, will return 324% revenue, ROI, money spent versus gain back to the business. Of that, media counts the most, which is great for us and clearly shows the value of MediaCom, in that an average company, 240% of that stat is made up of actually the media investment. So that's key. The one caveat I'll point out here is the 3-year piece. You lose 50% of this investment count with short-term measures, which we all know, right? If we're measuring in the short term, we can only see short-term results. But marketing delivers more when you spend on it. It's also consistent. There aren't risks in campaigns. There aren't good campaigns and bad campaigns. Ongoing investment is a very sound strategy for a business to make. And in fact, more than any other function, it is sound. We can balance it this way. 72% of all advertising campaigns generate a profit for their business. So if you're sitting choosing where to put money, advertising counts the most, it delivers consistently, it delivers significantly. And more than that, on some level, we're seeing all businesses know that. And a really simple way we can measure this across all industries is marketing as a share of total revenue. And this fluctuates slightly year on year. It tends to sit around the 10% mark. Last year, we saw a bit of a dip. This time, it's at an all-time high. In fact, we're sitting annualized at 11.4% of company revenue. And of course, it's COVID related, but it's COVID related in that businesses are recognizing the need to invest in marketing as a primary way to retain brand, to look after their customers, but also to protect their investments. So there's a really strong case we have here for the returns. And I think it's an easy story to tell broadly, and it's one backed by data. And I can promise all of these stats are sourced and nothing so far has been made up. And I would love to be able to stop the story here. But we also all know that doesn't quite feel right day to day, because those broad statements and the power that marketing brings, and hopefully some of that information is new to you, doesn't translate to the day to day. And I found this myself. I found this in my conversations with CMOs and CEOs. And it can be broadly summarized by thinking, is marketing an expense or an investment? And one comes to mind, a quote here, which is true, and from a client grappling this. And the question was, media is the single biggest cost in our business. We need to find ways to reduce this expense, which is just at such odds with everything we've just. But it's true at the same time, and it's reflected in how we work, and it's reflected in challenges marketers face as well. And I just wanted to touch on three of these really broadly, because while those statements are true, 75% of CMOs, and this is a global study, actually can't define the contribution to their business this clearly. So being able to build out that robust business case, we can't quite get to. When it comes to board membership as well, we often aren't seeing CMOs sitting in that position, with only 2.6% of them actually being there. And that not only skews decisions in the out of favor of marketing, but it also means that we're not well represented at that level. And then finally, and what I think is most interesting, is that 60% of annual budgets aren't under the discretion of marketers. And so what that means there is, when it comes to setting the total budget, actually 60% of that is either predefined or pre-allocated to product priorities or brand priorities or retail pressures that the business faces. And so the ability to respond to this in the short term isn't there. And this sentiment, if we keep kind of stepping this down, it starts to shape the day-to-day challenges I know marketers face, and I know our clients face, and we hear it in discussions with them. And this shows up in a myriad of ways. The questions marketers will often get asked are, what annual budget do you need and what will it return? We think of annual planning process and how do we base it on the previous year and looking towards the new year, particularly with challenging times like COVID. If we look as well, another example is, how do we prove that brand investment returns results like retail does? And we've really well established tranches like the long and the short of it, but it's still an ongoing pressure on the business, actually building the case for brand and the lagging indicators versus very clearly spending in short-term retail and being able to quantify the difference. And then another common challenge faced by marketers that I know I've heard a lot of and people will relate to on this line is, can we reduce spend by X this quarter? And particularly as Q4 always rolls around, we need to reduce this amount of money. Or could you help us save Y? And being able to actually really clearly articulate the impact of that is a challenge. And so at a more tactical level, that's how we see this show up day to day in our conversations and the challenges our clients face. But we also see it show up on our side in the briefs and how they are orientated and what tends to turn up there. And again, getting even more tactical, but it's the same roadmap that we're flowing down that clients will struggle with they'll need to know, how much budget does this campaign need? I've been asked by the business to deliver Y on retail. What do you actually need to do to deliver that?
Are you serious? How the hell did you solve this issue?
And also, what difference would an extra X amount make? If I had an extra $1 million into this campaign, what would it deliver and how would we get it there? And then more broadly as well, So these turn up in campaign conversations. It could also turn up in annual conversations or negotiations. We need to reduce our total spend. What impact would that have? Bringing down an annual amount or looking to make cost savings. And I think from a macro level to a more day-to-day level, this is how we really see this come to life and feel it as teams as well. And what it really boils down to, and it's something we can support, is marketing accountability. And that's the measurement and optimization of actually what marketing contributes back to the business. And the thing is, I think everyone here would agree, our industry hasn't been great at this. There are a number of efforts and inroads made in the past, but actually thinking of this through an investment mindset and being able to very clearly make this case and support marketing and then defend and quantify where marketing investment should be made has always been a challenge. And it's a conversation we're increasingly having with clients, just like Josh mentioned. And it's a conversation we'd love to keep having. And what I would say as well is it's very easy, I think, to look back at some of these builds and broad stats and for it to feel quite daunting. And it is a bit of a journey to build this out. But it starts with two very simple questions. And for us to have with you and for clients to have with their teams. The first, and making sure we can answer these. The first is, what return on investment does my marketing investment generate? If I am spending $100 million a year, do I know in real revenue what that's returning to the business? And I'm able to quantify that by quarters or by dollar amounts. Can I make that case? Is question one. And if not, that's the priority one for us to look into. And then the second question is, when you've cracked that or when you focused on that, is quite simply, how can I optimize this? So get increasing return, either based on portfolio or product management. And unpacking this a little bit, this is being able to really clearly define where we should be spending, not legacy spend brands, not particular favorite brands, not just the biggest brands, how much we should be spending on them and how much they should return. And those are the two starting points we advocate for at MediaCom, is being able to ask those questions and then ideally being able to answer them. And that's the starting point. And it's questions we're working closely with our clients on, and it's questions we'd love to help with. And just in closing, I'd love to share an example to make this a little bit more real of a client where we've seen this come to life in very challenging circumstances, and that's for Fonterra. And for the MediaCom team, they will know we've got a very long-standing global relationship with Fonterra. It's the biggest dairy provider in the world, and it's hubbed in New Zealand. And the New Zealand industry in particular last year was facing some incredibly challenging times. That was due to a range of reasons, but it did mean that across the board, their share price fell heavily and they were needing to make cost cuts extensively throughout the business. And that impacted everything from the way they were innovating product to the size of the team, to even moving where they're based. They moved from being in the CBD to being based in looking to being based in one of their factories. So big calls being made to save money and realign the business. And of course, that challenge comes to marketing. And I think if we're honest, it often starts with marketing. And a really simple version of this is, if we're making this much effort to make savings, what is the value of the media investment right now, and how much can we downsize it? And again, it's thinking of it as a real expense mindset here. That yes, we know we'll need to do some stuff within marketing and media, but how much could we cut while actually keeping things going to save the total enterprise value that we're looking for? And unfortunately, it's all too common a question, particularly in trying times, particularly environments where sales are going backwards, or right now when some business models are broken. And it's in those times where we need to be really clear in defining this, because there is an answer in this question. We just tend not to quantify it. And so what we looked to do here is exactly what we've explained above, and really work to understand the impact of marketing accountability for Fonterra to answer this question. And it was fascinating to break down. And you'll notice there's a few X's and empty numbers here. These aren't typos. There's just so much information I could share. But what we were able to do is start by getting really clear on what marketing actually does for their business in New Zealand. And it starts with simple statements. So in FY19, we understood how much they spent on media. And we could say for every dollar you spend on media, we generated X amount of revenue. So really clear return. We were then able to say, in this year that you're asking us for, with the current investment that you give us, for every dollar, we would generate Y. And I'm going to put in arbitrary figures here to make the point, but this was a significant increase because we were able to do modeling work here. So based on same spend and changing market conditions, we could say that in FY19, we generated 140%. And really, these are made up. I'm not giving away trade secrets. And in FY20, based on the same spend, we would generate 160% returns to your business. Here's the thing, Fonterra. Within everything else going on within the market as well, and with marketing being such an important growth function, if we invest another 10 mil into it on top of what you're doing, we will increase the total revenue return by 8%. So actually going one step further. And the incredible end to the story is that's exactly what they did. And a version of this was presented at the board. It was able to be a robust discussion where marketing was viewed as an investment. And our marketing team was able to really clearly make the case that even in times, and particularly in times when conditions are challenging, the role of marketing is more vital than ever. The potential for return is greater than ever. And actually, we should be able to quantify and invest more if we need to, which is what we did. And then the final piece to this, and this is just touching on that last point I raised around the second question of, what do you then do with that spend? Because these are broad dollar amounts. Is we could actually then look at how do we optimize this investment? How do we best pick which products to invest in and how much and when, based on years and years of data that all companies will sit on? And then also, what's the best channel mix to support that investment? And so going from really broad acceptance of the value of marketing, really total alignment on the need to invest, particularly now, to also getting very granular on how we will deliver that return and how we work as a team with marketing to get there. So guys, that's what I wanted to close on. I know I've moved through a lot of stats and I've moved through really quickly, but as you can tell, it's something I'm particularly passionate about. I think it's a narrative which we're increasingly having with clients. It's a story which is more important for us to be telling than ever. It's also a capability which sits well within the MediaCom team. And so I would really encourage our marketers to start asking those two questions and for our teams to reach out and being able to support it. So thank you very much, everyone. I'd love any questions or builds or thoughts on that.